Welcome, everyone. I'm Jess Altieri, the CEO and certified sommelier of Wine Channel TV, and today we are getting ready for the second annual New Zealand Wine Day on behalf of Complexity Fine Wines. The event will actually be taking place February 4th at the Kenmore Live Studios right here in Chicago and online around the world. And as you may know, Complexity brings together 21 of the finest wineries from New Zealand, really with a single purpose, to establish the credentials of New Zealand's fine wines here in the U.S. And today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Matt Dicey of Mount Difficulty, located in central Otago, New Zealand. So welcome, Matt. How are things out in New Zealand?
Yeah, awesome right now. We're just sort of heading into summer, so the days are getting longer, warmer, and life's starting to look up always.
Fantastic. And in case people don't know, tell us a little bit about yourself and, really how you got into the wine business out there. I know you got into the wine business a while ago and you joined Mount Difficulty in 1999, correct?
Yeah. So I sort of came back actually from the States, and I was working in the States in 98, and I'd been sort of wandering around the world for 4 or 5 years making wine in different parts of the world through Europe, South Africa, the States, New Zealand. So I'd been sort of doing that for 4 or 5 years before coming back and getting involved with Mount D. But my family has a much longer history. I'm actually a 4th generation vigneron, so historically the family's been involved in, so which clearly wasn't in New Zealand, because New Zealand is a much younger wine industry than that. I'm a South African native, and born in South Africa, and all of our sort of past wine history has been in South Africa.
That's really interesting. So it's in your blood. I mean, wine really is.
Yeah, it was one of those things. When I was growing up, I was the classic dinner table. I had a little sherry glass with always had a glass of wine on the table in a little tiny sherry glass, and you're allowed to have a glass. So I grew up having wine with every dinner, where wine was a very normal part of the sort of environment. And went away and sort of went to university and studied sort of chemistry first, with a mind to going on and doing a winemaking sort of degree, if you like. So the rest of my sort of family history has all been sort of on the vineyard side, so viticultural, and I was the first one that sort of crossed the Rubicon and went to the dark side and got involved with the actual winemaking. So very much the black sheep of the family.
And you're doing an outstanding job. So that's so interesting. I mean, talk to us now about, Mount Difficulty. I know it's located in beautiful central Otago. In case people aren't aware, can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, so Central Otago is the southernmost wine growing region in the world.
Wow.
We grow wine on roughly the 45th parallel south, which doesn't sound that far. Like, you guys are further north than we are south, but the northern hemisphere is a pretty congested place. Down in the southern hemisphere, there's really just New Zealand and Patagonia. So there's a lot of sea, a lot of nothing out there, and that largely drives a lot of what sort of makes it interesting growing wine down the south. We are sort of somewhere where there aren't any people. So really it's just sort of this really arid, dry landscape in Central Otago, which is quite different to the rest of New Zealand. The rest of New Zealand is quite sort of lush and green and very coastal. Central Otago is way down the bottom of New Zealand, and we are a very dry, arid region. So even though the rest of New Zealand has sort of a lot of rainfall, we only get on average sort of 12 to 14 inches of rainfall here, which is amazing, because if you go out to the coast, which is only about 100 miles out to the coast from here, they get somewhere around 30 feet of rainfall a year. So it is a real land of extremes, where if you're out at the coast and you're getting all that coastal rainfall, you're at 30 feet of rain, and we're down to 14 inches. So there's all these coastal sort of ranges and we're right inland from that. So it's a very dry, arid environment.
And so do you think that's contributed to making your wine so unique? I mean, I know you've won so many, numerous awards. Congratulations, by the way, for your wines, such as Roaring Meg, the Pinot Green, your Pinot Noir. Is that what helps distinguish you?
Certainly the climate's a huge part of that. Pinot is something that hasn't sort of found many homes around the world that it seems to really enjoy growing in. And it was really interesting, because the first wines that came out of Central that were based on Pinot, it just seemed to find this expression. It seemed to really like the environment, likes the dry, arid climate, likes the really cool nights, likes the warm days, likes the short growing season. All those sort of things that seem to be unique about Central are things that Pinot seems to have really sort of cottoned on and said, look, this is an environment that I like growing in, and I give this really interesting sort of flavour, even from young vines. It produced this sort of real beautifully intense, perfumed, aromatic Pinot that was all based on this sort of bright fruits and just this cleanliness and an aromatic purity that's quite sort of unique. And that's all driven about the climate, the place, those sort of things, and Pinot just liking growing in this environment.
And since I'm sure people are aware, your seasons are opposite to ours here in the U.S. right now, can you tell us, like, how is your harvest going and what are your projections for your wines for this coming year?
Yeah, so we're just coming into the season, so being as far south as we are, we sort of go through a real frost risk period. So, the whole sort of months of October, November for us are fraught with danger and frost risk, sort of worry about what's going on from a frost perspective. So right through that sort of the early sort of season, the question marks are how are we going to develop it? Are we going to have frost? We're going to lose sort of part of those crops. Luckily, we've got through the spring and we haven't had any of those sort of frost sort of impacts. We had one amazingly cold front that came through, and we had snow, and it was just really, really bitter, but luckily it didn't actually drive any sort of real frost, or any damage. So we're through the sort of the problematic period. The next sort of stage is flowering, so that's coming up just around Christmas for us. So, and that's the sort of the next of the growing sort of stages, and then we don't have harvest through to about March, April.
And speaking of Christmas and the holidays, I want to know, do you have any favorite pairings with your wines?
Turkey. Turkey's a classic, yeah. So, I mean, we typically, for us, because it's actually the middle of summer at Christmas time, so it's always a barbecue. It's always outside, it's a barbecue, it's a festive. The daylight here, because we're so far south, like, it's daylight till 10 o'clock at night. Oh. So it's not dark, it's not inside, it's all outside, it's barbecues, and so it's get a big Weber kettle barbecue, put a decent sized turkey on and sit down and drink some nice cold bites to start with, and then a couple of really good Pinots with some turkey.
I'm doing something wrong being out here in cold Chicago then. I should be out there. And so, I mean, kind of on a closing note, as I mentioned, we're getting ready right now for New Zealand Wine Day, and this is Mount Difficulty's second year participating. Can you first talk to us about your relationship with Complexity? I mean, what are some of the benefits you've seen of working with them?
I mean, for us, Complexity was all about trying to really showcase New Zealand high-end wines and trying to really get a foot in the door. And people don't understand that New Zealand isn't just a sort of a one-horse Sauvignon Blanc type orientation. And we have all these amazing wines, and it's about sort of illustrating to people the amazing diversity and complexity that exists within New Zealand and what sort of fantastic wines there are. And for us, it's really opened a lot of doors, provided a lot of intros to various on-premise and off-premise accounts, so various restaurants, etc., that we just haven't been able to sort of access prior to having the sort of the foot in the door, if you like, with the Complexity program. So it really has opened doorways, introduced us to sort of new people, new markets, and it's been a really, really phenomenal sort of journey.
Yeah, I'm extremely excited and looking forward to the event again this year. And I need to know, will you be joining us here in Chicago or joining us virtually?
I'd love to join you, but it may have to be in a virtual sense.
And you don't feel like coming to the cold weather, I could tell.
Yeah, well, it's one of those tricky things. I love skiing, so I've spent a lot of time skiing in the States. So February, there's always a sort of pull into, maybe I could tie a little bit of skiing in with a trip if I go there in the middle of winter.
Well, thank you again, and I'm really looking forward again to New Zealand Complexity Wine Day, and it's going to be on February 4th at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And for more information, everyone can follow the Complexity Facebook page or visit complexity.co.nz for more information. Thank you again, Matt, so much, and I'll do a cheers with you with my holiday wine glass right here. How cool is that?
Oh, awesome. Love that. That's really cool.
Cheers, and I'll talk to you soon.
Enjoy the holiday. Cheers.
Have a great holiday.